Health programs.
Keep going, keep going.
We have health programs around the country. We started here in Boston back in 2003. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in the year 2000. And then the following year, I released my first book, Battling the Killer Within. And I began to speak out in Boston and around the country, raising the risk about prostate cancer. I lost my father and both grandfathers of prostate cancer. I lost my father 3 months before I was diagnosed with the disease. So because of my family history, I really understood the need for more education awareness about the disease. It isn't something that we talked about around the dinner table. In fact, when I was diagnosed, I realized that I knew very little about prostate cancer. So I wrote the book, published it, and began to speak on the subject. And following that, and 3 years later, in 2003, I founded the Prostate Health Education Network. And since then, we have been on the road educating about this disease and supporting men. PHEN is a leading patient education advocacy organization nationwide, focusing on the need of Black men when it comes to prostate cancer. So we're active across the country. In fact, this Boston rally is the sixth rally that we started in 2021. And through that rally, we reached out to 17 cities in 7 states, and using radio advertising, social media, and town hall meetings, we reached over 4 million people. So we're bringing this rally home to Boston next Saturday.
You've come a long way from being diagnosed and having to deal with that emotionally, psychologically, and to deal with it with your family, to now running an organization that's helping to save the lives of men throughout the country. That when I first met you, you were doing some of this, but not to the extent that you're doing this now. So are there other organizations similar to yours dealing with prostate cancer among the Black population in our country?
There are a number of organizations that are out there that are on a more of a local level, the way we were some years ago. And what we try to do is work with these organizations. We actually support their efforts with our tools because we do have a lot of educational tools. We have brochures, we have patient education portals, we have monthly webinars and webcasts. So we work with some of these organizations so that they can use our tools.
So when you were diagnosed, how did you get through this emotionally? How did you get through it? How did your family get through it? Because you're completely on the other side of this. But there are a lot of people who are just beginning the journey. And then don't some men have to undergo a biopsy in preparation to find out what's really going on with them?
Yes, they do. Once you have a PSA blood test, if that blood test comes back abnormal, and that's the PSA blood test is typically done through a primary care doctor. And if that blood test comes back abnormal, then the next stage is to be referred to a urologist who is a prostate cancer specialist. And after now, what the procedure calls for is to really do an MRI, even before a biopsy, to make sure that what has been detected on that PSA test is significant enough to call for a biopsy. Because again, not all prostate cancer kills, and there is a great emphasis now on making sure that we don't put men through a biopsy and treatment that may be unnecessary. So a biopsy helps make that decision. And then the next stage, if it's determined that a biopsy is needed, is that biopsy. And that biopsy is done and will come back and let the medical professors, the doctors know the level of prostate that you have, how aggressive it is, where it is in the body, has it now moved outside of the gland, and and they're graded and staged. So then that would determine the type of treatment that you are eligible for. And again, our program on Saturday the 19th will go through all of these processes and these details so that men will understand that whole process.
Now, looking at your program, I saw the names of some pastors in Boston that I know very well. One is Reverend Arthur Gerald. We both served together at Twelfth Baptist Church for years. And I don't know if is he going to be speaking about his experience? Is he on a panel? Is he leading a discussion? And I saw other names of men that I recognize.
Well, we have, you mentioned Reverend Gerald. Reverend Gerald is a 20+ year survivor. Mm-hmm. And Reverend Gerald has been working with us almost since we began. He's been one of the pastors that have been out front with us. In fact, we have a nationwide church partnership program, and it was actually started here in Boston with some other pastors. Some are still here, some are not, whom I'm sure that you know well also. So what these pastors have done is that they have recorded messages for us that we're promoting throughout this area, and we're promoting those on social media and on radio. So this is how we've done it in the other cities. So wherever we've been in these 17 cities, pastors and other leaders joined with us to outreach to the community. So Pastor Gerald, he's not presenting on the session. He will certainly speak about his experience and support. This is the third program over the years that we've held at 12th Baptist Church.
Okay,
and Pastor Gerald has been out front with us since on all of these.
So if this is the third year, I'm sensing there's growth. Every time you go back and do something like this, there's growth. And there's got to be some way, and we can talk about it later, there's got to be some way of sustaining your presence in the city of Boston. And there's certain ways that we might be able to help you to do that, because just this broadcast and the other ones that we have done, it's been a long time since we've come back to do something like this, but this needs to be in the forefront of the minds and hearts of the people in this city if we're going to be able to attack this. I underwent my own biopsy about 4 years ago, and they said that the bladder, the prostate, there were some problems there, and they did the biopsy and said, we'll talk to you in about a week, come back in a week. And for that week, my wife, with all her faith in Christ, she was acting strange at the house during that week. And then when we came back, she anticipated hearing the doctor say that I'm in trouble. And he apologized. He said, no, everything is okay with him. They gave me my numbers and everything. But that was a traumatic experience for both of us, because we have never gone through anything like that before. And so there's got to be a way that we can sustain a message to men in this city, especially with the names of the men that I saw on your flyer. They're recognizable men. They're men that people look up to for leadership in the city, and to see them say, hey, look, I've gone through this. They've kept it quiet because I didn't know that they did.
Right.
so there's got to be a way that we can keep this on the front burner. And again, this is your third year at 12th Baptist Church. Is your goal to do something like this every year in Boston? How do you really sustain the movement here in this city?
Well, what we do is, for years, we held a monthly meeting at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. They're one of our partners. And during that meeting, we welcome men who were newly diagnosed with prostate cancer, help them and their families
And their
through
families.
this crisis, because it is a family crisis. When I was diagnosed, I went through the same thing that you did with my family. And it is a family disease because it impacts the wife, the children, the whole household. You know, you're facing the big C. So we recognize that. And when we have those meetings with men newly diagnosed, we have a team of survivors that will sit with them and their wives to walk them through. And the first issue is a mental challenge that they're facing. That is the very first issue that you have to get across, and to let them know that this is not a death sentence. You know, it's a process that you have to go through smartly, and to try to come out on the other side well and without, you know, too much impact on your normal life. So that monthly meeting is important, and we've done, and we held it the last couple of years because of COVID. We will resume those monthly meetings at Dana-Farber in January. And those monthly meetings, we also webcast. So we broadcast those around the country. And those meetings have allowed us to establish a presence in all the other cities, because we're not just out in Boston now. And with those meetings, we're out across the country. And what we've also done this year was the 18th annual African American Prostate Cancer Disparity Summit that we've held, where we bring leaders from across the country and patients together in DC. So we held this in DC for 15 years, with one day being at the Capitol building, U.S. Capitol, and the other day being at the Washington Convention Center as part of the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. So we did that for 15 years.
Wow.
With COVID, we haven't done it since, but we created a month-long program. We had a program each week in September that we had speakers that we streamed, broadcast live, and we actually reached many, many more people. So those are the things that we've done around the country. But back to Boston, I agree with you. Boston is one of the cities that we're focusing on, bringing our leaders together. I mentioned those other 17 cities. So what we're doing in those 17 cities is what we're doing here. We had a month-long program through the radio and social media, culminated with a town hall meeting with those leaders. So now we have put together teams in each one of those cities with those partners to do some of the types of things that we were doing here in Boston. So we have a team of ambassadors that are survivors working in these cities. We support them with our tools and our resources, and that's the way we're expanding across the country.
Well, that's good news to hear. Can you talk with me and talk to the audience about the blood, the number when they test you? There's a certain number that's important for you to have. Could you explain what the significance of the numbers being high or being low?
Absolutely. When you do the blood test, you get back that PSA number, and that number, you know, it can be a normal or not threatening, and that number really is a function of your age. So you know, let's say men at 40 years old, if they get back a PSA number that, let's say, maybe less than 1, then you look at that number and say, hey, that is not an abnormal number. But what we want you to do is each year you get the PSA test, you need to follow that number and to see whether it's going up. And if it's going up, how fast it's going up. And that will determine, you know, that's important for the early detection. So you establish that baseline number with the PSA test, and I want to encourage the men to come out Saturday again to get that PSA test and to establish that baseline number that they can follow. Now, let's go back again to that 40-year-old man. If a 40-year-old man comes back with a PSA, let's say a 4, that's abnormal. And so immediately, that man needs to be further evaluated with a urologist. And that urologist will look at the number, the history, and a PSA of 4, in all probability, do a biopsy. But a biopsy may not be necessary because a PSA can rise because of a number of things. It doesn't have to be cancer. It can be an enlarged prostate. It can be other activities that will cause that PSA to rise. So all of this evaluation is important, but that PSA number, you start with that number and you follow that number.
So mine was an enlarged prostate, and they got that number completely down. And my urologist, he's great, and there's no fear of seeing him as often as I need to see him. And we've developed a good friendship. Walking into his office, sometimes walking into a urologist's office for some men is like, is this a death sentence? You know, they're scared. Their family's scared. Now, again, with just the same thing with COVID. When COVID hit our country, there were a lot of Black folk who were saying, conspiracy, I'm not taking any medication. It was so hard. Some of us decided to take the vaccinations and to go public that we were taking the vaccinations to help people that were fearful. How do we help men to realize that going to see the doctor is in your best interest as well as the best interest of your family? How do we convey that message to our men?
Well, I think messages from those men who have been through it, your message today, I'm sure will help a lot of men, because we're talking about a PSA test. It doesn't, high PSA, it doesn't always mean prostate cancer. And your experience with an enlarged prostate and saying, I had a lot of fear, my family had a lot of fear, and what we confirmed that I did not have cancer. And that is important, because enlarged prostate need to be treated. You need to get that enlarged prostate down. So we're really talking about PSA test helping with prostate health overall. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, again, I will point to the high death rate for men who are diagnosed at late stage. And that death rate is one part. But even for those men at 10 years, and I'm not saying 10 years is not the end. I'm a 22-year survivor. And, Reverend Gerald is a 23 or 24-year survivor. We both were treated. So the death rate is one thing. But if you get detected with late stage, you have to battle prostate cancer aggressively throughout the rest of your life, because it is no longer curable. There are continuing treatments. There are continuing treatments that are sometimes very toxic. We're talking about going into things like chemo and other types of treatment. There are a lot of new treatments, but you as a younger person, for instance, you don't want to have to do that for the rest of your life, and then always face that low survival rate. So we're talking about life and quality of life that will be helped with managing your prostate health, to regularly understand your PSA number and visiting the urologist or primary care doctor when necessary.
Let's take one final turn on this. So let's talk about the process of a person, as you just mentioned, has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and it can't be cured. So what is the process of either your organization or the medical field just walking with that man through the final process? What is that like?
Yeah, well, again, we with our tool, we have a tool called PHEN Path, and it's phenpath.com, and we will talk about this tool and go through that on Saturday. There are different levels of progression along a prostate cancer journey, and there are treatments that are available or recommended in each one of these stages. And they go from very simple, if you're diagnosed with a low level non-aggressive to pretty complicated processes when you have advanced disease. And so we often present on that and help men through that journey. So that's important. The key thing is try not to get there, but the number of men who are there, and then they need support and understanding of where they are. So all of that process, we have tools, we have experts. I have a doctor on my team, Dr. Keith Crawford, and he kind of leads that effort for us. And we work with doctors at all the cancer centers, all the major cancer centers throughout the country.
So some of the people are there at that phase of being diagnosed because they had a problem, but they didn't do anything about it. They were either fearful, they may have told a few people, but they decided to live whatever the problem was until it got so bad that they had to see somebody. And again, we don't want to make people feel bad because they had the fear factor, or they just didn't understand what was going on, or they didn't have the finances. They thought that without having the finances, how can I go see a doctor? So this has really been helpful, and I'd like to delve into this. I'm glad we're going to do this a second time. The person who will be interviewing the gentleman from your organization is a survivor he has AIDS, and he's survived AIDS for a number of years. So as far as him taking another journey, his is a different journey than this journey, but it has been a journey. It's going to be very interesting to hear that interview and have him talk about his process of what he went through and letting other people know that he's been through something different, but he has also survived and he's making a difference in other people's lives. Is there anything else that you want to say to the audience about the event coming up on Saturday, on next Saturday?
Yes, I really do want to encourage men, and we're saying men and their families. If you've been newly diagnosed with prostate cancer, and what's happening now is that the COVID delayed PSA testing, it delayed treatments for a number of years. So the estimate by the American Cancer Society is that we'll have a rapid increase in prostate cancer diagnosis. In fact, when you look at all the major cancers, prostate cancer is estimated to have the highest increase. And that breast cancer, lung cancer, all of the major cancers, prostate cancer is at the forefront. And Black men are diagnosed at a rate that's 76% higher than white men. And we die at a rate more than twice that of white men. It is important, and more important now because of that delay by a number of men to get an understanding of your prostate health. It's more important now than ever because of what we talked about. If we catch it early, there are options, and there can be some good options. If we catch it late, there are options, but we prefer to use those early options. So it is critically important to get out to this program that we have to understand your prostate health, to understand about treatments, to understand about managing sexual health if you are a survivor, understand about genetics, because if you, and like in my case, my father, both grandfathers died of prostate cancer. A lot of uncles had prostate cancer. So genetics play an important role in prostate cancer. And we've learned more and more about that over the years. So we have a genetic specialist. We've done programs on that. And so if you are a father and have sons, we want you to come and understand about genetic testing, to understand the risks that your family members have. So we have a pretty well organized and a pretty programs with many parts to it. And we will have sessions both upstairs and downstairs at 12th Baptist to cover all of these areas. So I really, really encourage you to come out and learn about your prostate health, learn about managing your health if you are a survivor. So, and we welcome you. And we have free lunch.
I commend you for what you're doing, because there are some people in our city, in this city, who do not really respect the church these days. And that's a part of what's happening in the culture anyway.
Right.
There are churches in Boston that have not reopened since COVID. They're still closed, and some churches are shut down. And the fact that you have decided that you're still going to go to the church and utilize the church as a base for sharing this information is really important for the church. It's important for the city, and it's important for all of those families for you to go to a place that has a reputation of being a place where faith can be ignited in the hearts of not only people who have faith, but waning faith, but people who do not have faith. Coming in and being encouraged like that is very, very important. So I'm glad that you're still utilizing the church the same way I'm utilizing the church to have this radio station in the basement of a church. It's important that we find a way to give the church a jump start, because we need it in our society today. Any final? Looks like okay. We have one more broadcast coming up. It's next week, next Tuesday. And who's the member of your staff that's going to be interviewed by Pastor Hobbs?
He's Reverend Adrian Backus.
Okay.
He's our Director of Church Partnerships and Community Outreach. So he's been with us for a number of years and for a number of programs that we've conducted throughout the country. And he will really, really talk more about some of the things we've done around the country with this rally and that we're now holding in Boston.
Okay. And how's any indication regarding the registrations? I know you're pushing the information out for people to register. And any sense of what it could be like on that Saturday, as of yet?
Well, we are hoping to have a few hundred people there, and so we're pushing hard. We decided not to do any registration, so we'll get people registered as they show up and get them seated to begin the program. Okay. But we have a lot of different outreach mechanisms in place, and I appreciate what you're doing here today to support our efforts.
Thank you. And we're going to keep the PSA going every other hour, every single day leading up to the event for you.
Oh, fantastic.
And we'll replay this broadcast. So, Mr. Farrington, Tom Farrington, thank you so much for being my guest. And thank you so much for the work that you are doing, helping people to understand the need for early detection of prostate crisis in their lives, and the fact that not only detection, but you're walking with people through this process. That's as important as the detection. So thank you very much.
Pastor Ball, thank you again for having me and helping us get the word out about the importance of prostate cancer health.
All right. Bless you, sir.
Thank you.